A lot's been going on with the fixes. Greetings. We have been watching everyone play Mythic Plus on the PTR and monitoring feedback and wanted to take a moment to share some thoughts on where things are at. Overall, we're seeing a lot of the type of gameplay we'd hope to see from our updated level 7 affixes, but we also see room to improve and are looking to make a number of changes for our next round of testing based on player feedback. So these are new affixes. If you somehow didn't see this, they're getting rid of a bunch of old affixes. There are no more seasonal affixes at all. There are new affixes coming in, and they are just way, way, way harder than the other seasonal or the other 7 level affixes. Okay, it's just a tuning thing, I think, at the most part, but they're just like 10 times harder than the other affixes in the game. So, Afflicted now has less health and has more consistent spawn behavior, and this is the one that I'm being told is like the worst one. There's another article that we'll look at too in a second that will show that. The Afflicted affix is meant to incentivize a greater focus on the spell utility, while also offering players with healing spells an alternative solution in cases where dispel availability is more limited or where other enemies have threatening dispel abilities. This is mostly working out, but their health, especially at higher key levels, is too high for healing to feel like a practical option, and that's a good response to that. Theoretically, it's a good response to that because if the health is too high, then that part just goes out, and that's gonna eventually happen. Like, your healing doesn't go up when you go from a 20 to a 25. It's the same number, but their health goes up. So it's kind of unfair. I've always said that, like, these affixes that require you to damage them or put spells that you normally put into enemies or, into the productivity of your class into an affix, it's really kind of unfair that it gets higher. You know what I mean? Because the content's already harder and your character doesn't do any more damage. So the affix just makes the dungeons way harder when there's affixes like that in the game on higher keys than it does on lower keys. And we'll come back to that. Incorporeal is now immune to damage and has more consistent spawn behavior. The Corporeal affix plays a similar role to Afflicted, but with emphasis on crowd control utility. A few things we're hoping to smooth out include both the rate at which these spawn, sometimes too many at once, and the ease with which crowd control can be accidentally broken once applied. We are discussing a change to incorporeal beings that would cause them to fade away when combat with non-incorporeal beings has ended. That would be a good solution as well. Explosive, and I've been told that they cannot be death gripped. I don't know. Yeah, I guess that would be maybe too easy, but yeah. So, Explosive now has less health and has more consistent spawn behavior. This is like the big one. We've heard feedback both that explosives in their new form have too much health and that in general it makes sense to try to ignore them, thus making it a healer problem in a different way than before. So if you didn't see this, you're missing this conversation. This is hilarious to me. There is this weird the community is lost in this game, honestly, but it is funny to me because people look at things that are slightly inconvenient for one role as a problem, right? So explosives being, so small, like just a little thing that you have to step on and it goes away. Well, all of a sudden that's now the healer's job because he's going to lose the least damage, right? Oh, okay, cool. So now what they're trying to do is not make it only the healer who should attack it. They're trying to make everybody attack it. But they gave it so much health that you just can't kill it. They can't be killed. It's like more health than the enemies you're fighting. So you only have like 8 seconds to kill it. It's like everybody switches, pops bloodlust. It still doesn't die. So they're just going to skip it, right? They're literally just going to, okay, healer, you got to heal through it. We're not killing that thing. That's absolutely hilarious to me. But now they have a much more creative solution. I have to give them credit for this. We were discussing, what is that thing? We were discussing a redesign. I'm completely lost my train of thought. We were discussing a redesign for the explosive affix to shift away responsibility from healers. The proposed change would cause explosives to instead shield creatures for a percentage of their explosive remaining health when its cast completes. And that's a smart decision. That's a very smart decision. But it doesn't. I mean, I don't know what that has to do with shifting responsibility away from healers. I don't really get that part, to be honest. It just means that if nobody switches to it, you get heavily punished, but the healer still has to heal it. So I guess what they're hoping to do there is encourage people to actually switch to it. But that's going to have to happen anyway. Like, this whole thing is so stupid, dude. No random healer is going to heal through multiple explosives going off in a pack, okay? But there is a light at the end of this tunnel in the next post that we're going to read. Entangling, we're keeping an eye on the potency of the snare and required response from players to successfully snap the vine. And we're looking to improve visual clarity and audio cues. So it's apparently really, really, really hard to see. The enemies are completely blocking it. But otherwise, this seems like the easiest of the affixes. So my initial complaint was this one, but it's just because the other ones are so grossly overtuned. Like the amount of effort you have to put in to deal with them is so absurd that this one's just easy. But it's the easiest of the four or whatever because it's not over. There's nothing that it can be overtuned on. You know what I mean? But this one is definitely still theoretically the most problematic because it can kill you and it can be unfair. And that is the thing that people hated about quacking. Last time I get to say it, maybe quacking. The people hated that because it was unfair. That and thundering. There was nothing you could do at times where you had to play like a god tier level player. You know what I mean? But this is interesting. In addition to the above, we are also discussing a change to the progression of affixes on keystones. With item rewards now increasing up to level 20, we're evaluating which level affixes are added to keystones. Our proposed change would delay when affixes are added to keystones. This is to give players more time to acclimate to the baseline dungeons before additional mechanics come online. This is a great idea. This is a great idea. Get this little squiggly S thing again. Keystones would gain their second affix at level 7, up from level 4, and then the old 7 would then go to 14. Keystones would gain their third affix at level 14. That would really be interesting for all those people who are like struggling, like hardcore struggling to get keys above 10 or whatever this thing is people say all the time to me. This would be big, I think, because these affixes are hard. Like, I'm going to tell you right now, dude. Like, but again, you have storming. It's like completely, like, this is a push week. Like, when you see storming instead of these other four, or even really entangling at this point, this is so out of whack now. They got a serious, serious issue here. So out of whack. But anyway, these affixes compared to these affixes are a complete joke. So having them go all the way up to 14, that's actually smart. Because if they're trying to make them as difficult as they currently are, well, that would make it a lot more logical. But there's another post. And this is very interesting because now they did a hot fix and they didn't do half the shit that they said they were going to do. Really strange. But they did nerf explosive orbs health, apparently by 71%. It had a huge amount of health. Like I said before, it was unkillable, 480k in the key that was tested by this Wowhead writer. But the big thing was, the biggest change for explosives seems to be its spawn rate. From testing, a maximum of 2 explosive orbs can be summoned at a time, regardless of pull size. This means that you can pull 20 mobs and only have, and this is huge. If this is true, and I'm trying to get these guys. I know they're legitimate journalists, but like, how many times did you test it? Like, are you 100% sure? It could be a bug, but anyway, they didn't mention it in the blue post, so I'm pretty skeptical. But if they do this, this is the way to move forward. Because there's two problems with explosives. One, it gets absurd in really high volume, and you don't always have control over that. Sometimes you're fighting massive packs that Blizzard just designed you to fight, and they're not really that dangerous. But now they're spawning 5 explosives, and now the pack's like impossible. You know what I mean? And the fact that you have to sink that much damage into those explosives is what's unfair. And then the second one is that people argue about whose responsibility it is, when in reality, the only penalty is actually the damage taken. So if you survive the damage taken, then you shouldn't even do it, right? That could literally be done now. People could do that now, right? So this doesn't change anything. This is just the community fighting with itself, as always. But it's interesting because this is a very, 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 very smart. Between the two changes they made now, if this is one of them, like this is a true one, this is genius. Because now you've changed it so there's heavy incentive to actually attack them, and there's heavy incentive to now pull larger on explosive weeks. Because if you think about it, if say, I don't know numbers really well, but say like 10 million damage is going to have to go into explosives over the course of the entire dungeon, okay? Well, if that 10 million damage is only going to be allocated towards packs of 5, then you could theoretically cut that down by half, right? So if you get packs of 10, then you'll have 5 million damage, right? I mean, like, theoretically, I think that's how it would work. You'll have the amount of damage you have to put into explosives. Like, if you could pull the entire dungeon in one pull, the affix doesn't exist, right? Obviously, you can't do that, but that's right. So, like, hey, that's really, 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 really clever. And apparently they didn't do that with the other ones. So yeah, this one, it's just they did nerf the health, but people are saying unless the majority of your party has to dispel this, affix continues to look brutal. And I do agree from what I've seen, it just looks it's just not working well. Like, I don't know why there's so many of them. It's a longer cast. Like, you have some time. I think it's 10 seconds, so you can actually dispel twice if you're really ready for it. But it's just really clunky. This one, honestly, I think this one just needs to go. I think and they're not going to, because they're rushing the fucking patch out. I forgot I wanted to talk about that too until right now. If you guys didn't hear, the patch is coming out in less than 4 weeks now. Okay, and so the season started on December 13th. It's coming out on May 5th. So 5 months and what, 2 weeks? Is that how that works? 5 months and 2 weeks. The shortest season ever, besides the season 4, the weird season 4 we had at Shadowlands. I don't like that. I really don't, especially because we have stuff like this going on. So Blizzard's trying to really, I would say even like redeem itself. Like, they're trying to prove that they can produce content at the pace that the players consume it. But in reality, the players are never gonna, like, that's just not a model for success. You're setting yourself up to fail here, because when you push out content this fast, it's more and more likely that there's already flaws in it. And we already have flaws in content that was coming out 8 months instead of 5 months. You know what I mean? So I really don't think this is the way to do it. I get it. It's probably somehow related to Diablo 4, although I think it shouldn't be. I really think it should come out after Diablo 4. Like, honestly, the people who want to play Diablo are just going to play Diablo. And this season is like a really big time for WoW. So if the season comes out before Diablo 4, and then a bunch of the players who are playing WoW are like, I'd like to check out Diablo, well, it's just going to kill the season. Like, what the fuck are we going to, you know what I mean? Like, that actually is going to kill the season. It's like when Classic came out, dude. I'm really not looking forward to this. This is like really unfair that they're handling it this way. They're rushing it, and now they're also coming out like so far ahead of Diablo that 4 weeks from now, the season comes out. 4 weeks later, the game comes out, and that's plenty of time for a lot of people to just give up. Now, luckily, it probably won't be like, people who are doing Mythic Plus pugging anyway. They're not really going to be the people giving up, but I don't know, man. I don't know. This whole thing is kind of strange to me. I don't know why they added new affixes and why they made them so much harder than the other ones. But I certainly feel like, we're just here missing the seasonal affixes. So thank you for watching. Let me know what you guys think. Otherwise, we will see you guys in the next one.